Hello, everyone. My name is Anidora. I'm the podcast producer for What Is Your Story. On today's episode, we're joined by Eva Obi, and he's an author. He has written Men Don't Die and Some Angels Do Not See God. If you're also a creative, I think this is an episode that you will definitely enjoy. If you resonate with his story and his career path, let us know in the comment section. And if you also want to be a part of the podcast, we have a casting call link in the description box. Just click on it and we will get back to you with further information. All right, you guys, enjoy.
You are now listening to an episode of What Is Your Story by Noisy Podcast. Enjoy.
My name is Eva Obi. I'm a fiction writer, author of Some Angels Don't See God and Men Don't Die. And this is the story of my journey. My story began in Aba, a city in Abia State, Nigeria, where I was born in 1989 to Catholic parents, Chinyere and Ejidike Obi. See, I love Aba, but whilst the city was famed for its enterprising people and their commerce, it was also home to armed robbers and petty thieves, to hooligans and ill-intentioned men, home to riots and jungle justice. Whenever miscreants attacked and killed Igbos in the north, as was the case during the Kaduna riots, reprisal attacks always happened in Aba. Beggars, sugarcane, and onion merchants weren't safe. So my parents felt the need to shield us from all these influences. They were not the wealthiest people, but they were alive to their duties, to their responsibilities. However, the biggest gift they gave us was not financial, but the fact that they provided a stable environment for us to grow. I never saw my parents quarrel. So my home was filled with peace and laughter. Comfortable enough for me to always be indoors instead of hanging out with boys of questionable character. I was a curious boy, I would say. I would always be in my mother's room looking for books, going through her things. The first book that I can remember that I came across was Thomas Hardy's The Mayor of Casterbridge. It was an interesting story of a man that sold his wife and his infant. Then I found the Jerocles by Wole Soyinka and Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. I could also remember a book that we read in school when I was in primary 5 called Trapped. Almost like I became trapped. I became very interested in the beauty of storytelling. Day after day, all I did was think about these books. My sister was also a reader. I was when she started giving me books written by Adeze Atuegu. You see, you don't choose to be a writer. Wole Soyinka in one of his interviews said that the worst kind of writer is the person that just wakes up one day and decides, I want to be a writer. Writing chooses you. I remember my sister telling me about some contrasting theories of psychology. One speaks about the tabula rasa, how we are born with nothing, how we're just blank slates on which the environment writes on. One speaks about how we're born with innate capabilities. So what the environment does is to activate those capabilities. I believe that I was born with something. I believe that I was born with writing. And all I needed was the works of Adeze Atuegu, who was only 17 when she had all those books published, to make me realize that young people like me could write too. After I read a play by Adeze Atuegu, I decided to write my first play. Then I wrote many more. One was Akaraka, about an African superman inspired by the legend of Kiliwi Nwachukwu and Gentle Jack's role in Vuga. Then I wrote Trees Swaying in a Whirlwind. Here, I was writing a story based in the United States about their seasons, about the sun being directly overhead at the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn, about a man wanted dead by his wife and her lover for his life insurance. I did not know what it meant then to be a writer, but I knew I wanted to write. It was a must-write feeling, and there was nothing I could do about it. My mother would occasionally read my writings and call me a genius. She would say, genius is an infinite capacity for taking risks. I did not understand what that quote meant, and I did not understand where it was from, but I understood what her intent was: to encourage me, to make me feel like I was special. Maybe that kept me going, but for the most part, I had to write alone. I was not writing because I wanted a pat on my back. I was writing because I felt like I had no choice. In Aba, it was strange for a child like me, born to business parents, to say that they wanted to write. But that was the only thing that I knew, that I wanted to be a writer. In secondary school, I joined the literary and debating society. There was nothing much happening there in terms of writing, but I only published my think pieces on their board, sometimes read and summarized books that I read to members of the club. Then I decided to write a story known as Touching the Leper's Tale. When I was done writing, I had the dream of, publishing it, just similar to what I had seen Adesatu would do with all her books. But then it got missing. I gave it to a friend of mine, the handwritten manuscript to a friend of mine, and then it got missing. And I thought in my head, I could write this again. But when I wanted to write it again, that was when I discovered the hard truth that the emotional and mental and physical investments that go into writing a book, they form one unfortunate investment that neither the body nor mind can replicate. It was not just possible for me to write it. After SS3, I turned my attention to writing something else. Then I had a lot of misgivings about religion. I have my fascination with spiritualism, with the afterlife. And I used to have very strange dreams about these things. So I started developing a story that was based on those dreams that I was having at that stage in my life. I came up with a story called The Brotherhood of the Snake. That was what I called it, The Brotherhood of the Snake, about Prince Dunican and his battles with his brother and his encounter with the Orcot. Prince Dunican would later flee his father's kingdom and set up his own village where there was starvation. They eventually started eating their slaves. That was how they got introduced into cannibalism, killing and eating their slaves. The devil would eventually appear to him and gave him abundance while he pledged his soul to the devil forever. But I didn't end up writing it. I had started, I didn't complete it. And I got admission into Nnamdi Azikiwe University, UNIZIK, study chemistry of all things. I am going to talk from one article that A. Igoni Barrett wrote when he was talking about how he was in the university and found that in terms of writing, there was nothing there for him. It was the same thing for me. In terms of writing, there was nothing there for me. There were no book clubs, no book readings, no bookstores, nothing. It was a period that I would refer to a period of book scarcity in the country. I didn't know what it was, but we just didn't have books around like we had them when we were growing up. And there were no bookstores. I didn't even read much because I indulged in the things that normal boys indulged in. Yeah, women, alcohol. I mean, we had all those distractions. It was fun times in UNIZIK. In my final year, I became the editor of my final year book, I would say. And when it was published, that was when my classmates started saying, "Oh, you wrote this," speaking about the articles I wrote in the yearbook, and they were very impressed. And that was what reminded me that you need to start writing again. I hadn't read a lot of creative books when I was in the university. I mean, I was just reading my school books, educational books. The only two books I could remember I read in that dark period of my life, I would say, in terms of literature, the only two books I read were Images from a Broken Mirror. 3 books, actually. Images from a Broken Mirror, Charlatan, and A Family of Her Own. So I needed to stay home and wait for youth service. Then I started trying to write again. And then I realized I was blocked, that I couldn't write anything. I couldn't string my words together to form reasonable sentences that were, clean enough to encourage me to keep writing. Then I stopped writing. I started reading. I became able to write again. I started writing again. I wrote a story called Flying Feelings about my experiences in the university, based on my experiences in the university. And when I was done with, writing Flying Feelings, I went for youth service, and eventually I wanted to write again. I said, let me write again. This time, let me write something that was going to get published. I didn't think Flying Feelings was, good enough. I didn't trust what I had written because it was my first time trying to, write. It was a lot of handwritten. The manuscript was handwritten, a lot of long notes, like 4 long notes. It was actually, a lengthy manuscript, I would say. That was when I started coming up with the story Men Don't Die, based on my childhood fascination about the afterlife. So I wanted to explore that theme of death, of spiritualism, not to answer questions, but to raise more questions, to point to the fact that there could be many possibilities. Because I had stopped believing in a lot of things about Christianity, about religion, whatever it taught us regarding what happens to us when we die. I stopped believing all those things. I stopped believing that there was a heaven somewhere or a hell somewhere waiting for us.
Are you enjoying this episode so far? If you love stories that make you feel at home and you love reading December love stories, check out our anthology, A Man and a Woman and Other Stories. You can get a copy of this book at Roven Heights Bookstore in Nigeria or at Vidya Bookstore in Ghana. You can also check out the link in our description box below for all of this information. Noisy Streets also hosts monthly book club meetings every last Saturday of the month. You can find all the information you need in the box below. Okay, let's get back to the episode.
So Men Don't Die was my own avenue to say, there could be more. There are just endless possibilities regarding things that happen to us when we die. I could remember when I had the story in my head, a friend of mine called Ifeanyi Ntube. I kind of narrated the story to him, and then he goes, Eva, I have goosebumps. I knew it was a story that I needed to write. So I started writing it. As I was writing it, I also began my career in the banks because I served in the bank, and then I got posted in the bank, and after I joined Zenith Bank, I would say. I was in Skybank, then I joined Zenith Bank. So when I was in the banks, I was still writing. I always thought in my head, I'm just doing this. When I get published, I'm going to leave all this behind and become a full-time writer. After writing Men Don't Die, I started going through my troubles getting it published. I wrote Men Don't Die between 2010 and 2014. I said to myself, oh, it's time to get it published. Then I realized publishing was hard, maybe even harder than writing. I tried. I reached out to some publishers. The first publisher that showed interest in Men Don't Die, they said, oh, we like this story, we want to do the story, was Farafina Kachifu. The first time I'm ever saying this anywhere, because I had seen what they had done with Chimamanda's books, what they had done with Egosa Imaswen's books. I loved Fine Boys. So I said, okay, let me reach out to Farafina. I reached out to them, they loved it. They said, we want to do it, we like the story, we want to publish it. But my experience with Farafina taught me an invaluable lesson. And what was the lesson? So when I was writing Men Don't Die, the original story, the way the story came to me, was that the main character was supposed to die. This is a spoiler. The main character was supposed to die, but it's fine. It's a book that I published a long time ago. So when I was writing the story, I got to that point where I developed a soft spot for Brumelova. And I decided to change things, and I made him leave. When the full manuscript got to Farafina and their editorial board read it, and they complained about the ending being weak. And I knew it was because I changed the original version of the story and I made Brume love and leave because I felt that spot for him. It was never going to happen again. It took me another year to rewrite Men Don't Die and brought back characters that would enable me achieve the original ending that I was supposed to achieve. And when I was done, I sent it to them to take a look at again. And they told me of some policy that they have, that once they've looked at the manuscript, and they can't consider it again. And I can remember exchanging emails with them saying, I've changed it, the ending. You complained about the ending, kind of weakening the plot. But that is no longer the case. You should take a look at it. And they didn't want to take a look at it. Then I sent it to Parisia. When Parisia saw it, they said, yeah, nice, we want to do this story. And that was how my journey with Parisia and with Azafi began, because they promised that they wanted to publish the story. But they also said, oh, you need to give us some time. Oh, we just moved to a new office and we want to publish 5 books at the same time. So we're trying to get more manuscripts. So you need to give us some time. Then the waiting started. It was 2014 that we're having this conversation. 2015 went by. 2016 went by. Parisia still hadn't published my debut. And I became very impatient. And I started following Azafi everywhere she went to in Lagos. In 2016, Abubakar Adam Ibrahim had just won the NLNG prize and he was coming to read in Lagos, Terraculture. And Abubakar's book was published by Parisia. And I decided to go for the reading because I had read the book as well. So when I went for the reading to see Azafi, and the one thing that Abubakar doesn't know, Abubakar and I were friends. He's a great guy. Abubakar, that was my first time of meeting a writer. I had just been writing in my corner, and even when I came to Lagos, the pressures of youth service and then working in the banks kind of just limited my involvement in that community. After his reading and I went to meet him and I had my book for him to sign, he welcomed me with this warm smile, and I would never forget how nice he was to me because it was a very important moment for me. Abubakar made me believe, or made me feel like I belonged. He made me feel like it was a community that wanted me. And he signed my book. I can't forget what he wrote when he signed my book. He said, "Forever, may your light continue to burn brightly forever." And it meant a lot to me. After I met Abubakar, the second writer I met was one of Azafi's reading as well. It was Amara Nicole Okolo. She was reading from her 2 newly published works. So after the reading, I went to meet Amara. She took my books to sign. And the first question she asked me was, "Are you a writer?" I didn't understand why she asked me that. But it felt good. It made me believe that maybe there is some mark on the forehead for writers. I wasn't confident enough to say that I was a writer. I mean, I hadn't published a book. And I didn't have that confidence. And I said, I write. 2 different things. So when you write, you just create your own word. But when you're a writer, that means you have that platform where you're able to bring people in to live in that word with you. And she signed my book and said, "To ever keep on writing." It meant a lot to me. It kind of encouraged me, and it made me realize that I needed to start writing again. So as I was waiting for Azafi to publish Men Don't Die, I started writing again. One of the things that also happened before my first book got published was, it was also a time that I was having thoughts of becoming a full-time writer. Then I met Tony Khan, and Tony Khan had just published Carnivorous City, a book that I really enjoyed. And I had written a review about the book. So when I met Tony Khan, after the reading, one of the questions I asked Tony Khan was I write and I'm thinking of becoming a full-time writer. And he said, keep your job. But my meeting with Tony Khan also taught me a lesson. The curse of creative writing is that writing doesn't hold a solid promise of financial stability. Tony Khan made me realize that I could still combine both. So I said to myself that I'm going to, keep writing and also keep doing what I was doing in the financial services sector. And luckily or unluckily for me, my career in that space was also taking off. I was also doing really well. I mean, after my experience with Tony Khan, I started writing again. But then by 2019, Azafi and Parisia, they were now ready to publish my first book, Men Don't Die. I can remember the first copy of Men Don't Die that I signed. The day I went to Parisia's office, that I held that book, I hadn't felt anything like that in my life. It felt like I had given birth to a baby, even when I did not know, or I would never know what it means to actually give birth to a baby. But I just suspect that it must be the same feeling. The first copy of it I signed for Odia Ofimon, and things took up then. Book readings in Port Harcourt, book readings in Aba, my home, book readings in Lagos. That was my introduction to the community of fiction writers. And I would say that I met really nice people. And I met Igoni Barrett. He invited me to his home, and it meant a lot to me that Igoni Barrett recognized me, and he asked me what I was working on. That was when I told him I was working on this book, Some Angels Don't See God. When he asked me what the book was about, and I just, rambled, tried to narrate whatever could come to my head, at the end of it, he said, it is really about the incest and the ramifications of it. That's what I tell people when I try to summarize what Some Angels Don't See God is about. Then I met more writers, met Chigozie Obioma. We started talking, and he asked me what I was working on. When I told him about the book, he asked that I send the first few chapters to him, and then he read through it, viewed and made comments, and also encouraged me. So it meant a lot to me. I published Some Angels Don't See God eventually. I had other writers reach out to me, like Onyeka Nwelue. Onyeka and we hadn't spoken before. I used to just see some of his posts on Facebook. He didn't know I existed. But somehow I saw a random text from Onyeka saying, "Nah, I want to publish your book in the UK." Onyeka runs this publishing company, Abibiman Publishing. And that was how me and Onyeka started talking. And then once he got across me and he told me, "I want you to come to Oxford. There's this Oxford Literary Festival. I want you to be on a panel." I said, "Well, of course." Then I got my UK visa, and before I knew it, I was in Oxford. This was before Some Angels Don't See God was published, actually. I was in Oxford on a panel discussing Men Don't Die. And then I met other interesting writers. I met Olukorede Yishao, then Chindo, a friend of mine in Port Harcourt. So I met all these people, Nze Silva, Ifedibo, and so on and so forth. One thing I've realized when I started meeting other writers is that our stories are mostly the same. One, we've had to write alone, even when no one was watching. Even when there was no encouragement, even when we didn't necessarily have writers around us or people who cared about literature, we kept writing. And I was happy to find that community. When Some Angels Don't See God was published, the reception was amazing, I would say. I realized that I had written a story that, was bigger than me. And I think that why people feel strongly about Some Angels Don't See God is because I've essentially written about what we've all gone through, what people are still going through, the things that we don't speak about. And I'm here and I'm still writing. My career in the financial services space is still doing really well. And the disadvantage is that I don't get to write as much as I would have loved, but I write. So I hold on to the words of Rainer Maria Rilke in one of his letters to young couples. So what he said was, in living like an artist, there is no measuring with time. 1 year does not matter, and 10 years are nothing. Live like a writer means not numbering, not counting, but ripening like a tree which does not force its sap, but stands confidently in the storms of spring, unafraid that summer may not come, but it comes. It comes to those who are patient. I learn this every day with pain that I'm grateful for. Patience is everything. So writing has taught me patience. And the most important thing is that I keep writing. I have 2 books published. And even though I have shortlistings for some awards, but the most important validation to me is hundreds and thousands of people that read my works and feel very passionately to talk about it. My most important validation is my publisher always going back to press to print more copies, calling me to say, "Oh, ever we're out. That keeps happening." So my books have achieved that kind of commercial success, and it means a lot to me that this boy from Aba, this boy born to business parents who didn't attend university, and it means a lot to me that I'm able to do it, to combine what I do in the financial services and be recognized globally for it, and also be recognized for my writing. It really, really, really does mean a lot to me. So when people say, can anything good come from above, I raise up my hand and point to my books. I also take consolation from the point one of my characters, Netta, the main character in Some Angels Don't See God, tried to make. As a writer, Netta said, stories in your head would keep you awake. You would not be rich, not as you want. You will not be famous as a rock star, but you have something. Through your characters, you get to live 1,000 lives in one. You get to travel to places without leaving the confines of your room and the vastness of your solitude. And you will tell your stories that would outlive you. And to me, that is living. There is no form of life that I consider better than that. My name is Eva Obi, and this is my story.
We hope that you enjoyed listening to this episode of What Is Your Story by Noisy Podcast. If you would like to be a guest on the show, please click in the link in the description box below. And don't forget to share, leave a comment, and like this episode. Okay, I'll see you the same time next week. Bye.